So thank you very much. So let's introduce Frank to the stage.
I cover from here.
Oh, you will feel free to come straight up to Hollywood. Michael Webb.
Let's see if I can do this gracefully.
So before I make a quick introduction, we're gonna play a few introduction videos from the various clones of blues. And we can play the video now.
Yeah, we actually went to shoot some new footage with some of these people that you're about to see, and we happen to do a little thank you and intro video for you guys. So thank you guys for coming here.
Hello, 니하오마. 정말 반갑습니다. 78년도에서부터 80년대 초까지 홍콩에서 영화 배우로 활동했던 브루스 라이, 허영주로, 펑야오, 지양wen주, 강도, 매니의 펑야오, 미. 정말로 반갑고 여러분 행복하실 수 있도록 나중에라도 만나 뵐 수 있는 그런 기회가 된다라고 하면 꼭 뵙고 싶습니다. 건강하시고 좋은 일만 생기기를 바라겠습니다.
看 OK 好1、2、3 go 哪一个时候哪一
各位记者，你们好，我是台湾的导演李作南。这次非常欢迎各位记者来参加香港复制新宇宙讲座。各位记者好，我是台湾的导演李作南。这次非常欢迎各位来参加李小龙复制新宇宙首映会，谢谢你们。
大家好，我是演员王照。现在在这里欢迎大家莅临李小龙复制新宇宙的首映，谢谢你们。
Hello, FCC. Hello, FCC. I'm Osondo. Thank you for coming to the first Hong Kong showing of Enter the Crown of Blues. Take care and bye bye.
So yeah, so you saw that was Dragon Lee and Lee Nam and Wang Dao, and of course Hundo, Bruce Lee. So Dragon Lee basically said he still misses Hong Kong a lot. He has many friends in Hong Kong. He wanted to thank all of you for being here and watch the documentary, and he looks forward to seeing you soon. So basically, Lee Nam and Wang Dao just thanked you guys for coming to the premiere, and that they're very happy that our film finally was shown in Hong Kong.
So let's quickly introduce Frank as well. So thank you for the introduction of the Bruce. Frank Djeng is, so apart from being the producer of the movie, he's actually a well-known audio commentary on pretty much a lot of Blu-ray 4K releases on Asian cinema. Pretty much you can pick up any copy, you'll see his name in the back. And he's also a Comic-Con, he's been on, is it 25th?
We just did our 27th panel at the San Diego Comic-Con on Asian action cinema.
Asian action cinema. And Michael Webb is actually, apart from what you saw in the documentary talking about the whole thing, he's also an author, he's also an actor, he's also a director, many things. So welcome Michael and Frank.
Glad to be here. Glad to be here.
So I'm going to kick off a few questions and I'm going to open up to the audience because I'm sure we have a lot of questions. So first thing, why make the documentary on the clones of Bruce Lee? I'll let you guys kick off. Maybe Michael, you want to kick off?
I was doing as Frank does a lot of, I was doing a commentary for David Gregory, the director, and it was on Trail, which Kung Fu Trail. They found in this Chinese restaurant in Canada, and they decided to release all these. But these Bruceploitation films, nobody really knew anything about, so they just brought me in to talk about them. And some people that like these movies, and which is an understatement, because these are the movies that really got me into making films in the first place. But I sat down with David and I said, look, this whole genre is untapped. It's this way that the West in many ways learned about Kung Fu movies by wanting to see more of Bruce Lee, who was sort of the beacon of the whole thing. And they got duped into, like I did, and drawn into these movies, and this is how we would see Kung Fu movies initially. And so I told him, I said, this is going to be a great documentary, we just got to find these films. He was like, okay. And I walked out and I went, great, yeah, there's another one of these, And then about 9-10 months later, he called me up and said, look, we're going to go to Hong Kong and start shooting in 6 weeks. You want to do this? And I go, yeah, let's go. So we came out here 7 years ago, and I've always felt that it's a piece of history, of action, Eastern cinema that usually gets swept under the rug. There's a number of Bruce Lee fans that absolutely hate these movies. I was just with a guy named Dan Inosanto, who was one of Bruce Lee's best friends. He was in Game of Death, but he also did one of these films with Bruce Lee. And when I was talking to him about this movie for an interview we have coming out, he said to me, when I did this movie, I suddenly was getting floods of letters from Bruce Lee fans just saying, disrespected your best friend, your master, and he was just like, oh my God, what the heck? I was just in a movie for a week, And I just feel there's a lot of this sort of pushing it aside, but yet it's a piece, it's a prism of how we saw these movies initially. That many of the people today, like Yuen Woo-ping or whoever, who are like just classics of the genre, got their start cutting their teeth on these movies. So there's a number of reasons to answer that question, but those are a couple of them.
Yeah, the same was kind of like for me, because like Michael, we were involved in that other commentary for that collection of trailers, Kung Fu movie trailers, and I did a little featurette for the Blu-ray. So I guess at that time I didn't realize I was actually being auditioned for this project. And then a few months later, again, David reached out to me and said, hey, we want to do this documentary. We need someone to go to Hong Kong and get these talents, one-day talents, and find them to interview them. Are you interested? And I said, well, sure. This sounds like a great passion project. And so that's how I got involved. And then at first I thought, well, this shouldn't be too hard, right? And then David gave me a list of people that he wanted to interview. My heart just sank. Like, are we can I get these people for you? So, but that was how I got started. So we came here. Late November, December 2016, and that's how this whole project got started. We started finding these people. Some of them actually were literally on the spot. We came here, we called them, we said, oh yeah, I'm available tomorrow, let's do it. And so we went and interviewed them tomorrow. So gradually, one by one, we started getting all these people.
Yeah, thank you. And also you mentioned it took 7 years to make, right? So were there some really emotional or memorable moments from that film? Maybe share Frank himself and then Michael.
I guess the Bruce Lee interview was quite emotional for me. For one thing, he said he has never spoken Cantonese since he left the film industry. So when we went to interview him, he said, I want to do this in Cantonese. And because I haven't spoken that language in almost 40 years, or 30-something years. So to that, I was very grateful for him to do that interview in Cantonese. But I didn't expect to have so much personal stuff coming out on that. And the other emotional part, of course, is to finally get Bruce Lee after 7 years, almost 7 years. Because it was always our intention to get all four major clone actors, Bruce Lee, and Dragon Lee. So we were lucky doing our first trip. We actually got 3 out of 4. Bruce Lee was the kind of like the standout, and when we first approached him, he just kept saying, "This is not the time." So we, every few months we tried to persuade him to do the interview, and COVID came, and then finally, when we were about to premiere the film at Tribeca last year, we told Bruce Lee that, well, we have to do a final cut of this film now, so this is kind of like your last chance to be involved in this project. And we sent him a clip featuring him that we would have put in the film had he not participated, and somehow that clip kind of changed his mind.
Michael?
It's for me, the whole trip was emotional because these are the guys that I grew up as a little kid watching, and it's not watching on a big screen. I would see it in the theaters, and it wasn't just like I saw a couple of them. It was a weekly thing for me to go the next Bruce Lee, the next Dragon Lee movie, the next Bruce Lee movie, or whatever. And so for me to go out there, I've worked with Hollywood actors all the time, and I've Stallone, I've written movies with Dolph Lundgren, I've been around people. Going and doing this movie, just the entire time I was like this. I was going to go meet Bruce Lee. I remember the first time Ho Xiong Dao, I was seeing him across the field teaching these people in this park, and I thought, get it together, you're a grown man, you can do this, you know. But in watching the film, what's emotional for me is a number of these people are now gone. That you've seen since we shot it. There's about 6 or 7 of these people who've already passed away, you know. And Philip Coffey is gone. John Ben, you didn't get to see him because we didn't use a clip in the movie, but who worked from the clones of Bruce Lee and The Way of Dragon, he passed away. And Eric, what's his name, just passed away, the writer for... But it was Terry Levine passed away. Yeah, I mean, so when I watch it now, and I'm realizing we're just kind of catching this documentary at a time where we're just catching the sort of last lap of these voices to be heard. And so there's a part of me that's like, I'm glad we're doing this now, because sometimes we still run into some of these people like Bruce Lee and even Dragon Lee, and you're like, so when you were doing this movie X or movie Y, what was it like? And they're like, what was that movie? Which one was that? What was I in it? You know, like there's this, it's even Wang Dao, who we just went and saw about a week ago in Taiwan. We came up to him and I said, hey, look, you know, when you were doing the Hot, Cool, and the Vicious, there was a part where your dad comes in. What was that like working with your dad in this movie? My dad wasn't in that movie. And then Lisa Lam and Dorian Tan, the other actor, looking and going, hey, Dad, wasn't like the mayor of the town? He was, my dad was in that movie? And it was like, yeah. And it was like, yeah, my dad was in that movie. And so there's memory that sort of we're having to contend with, but there's also people whose voices are, you know, are sadly going. So that's what happens when I watch this now. And I'm glad that we're doing this when we're doing this.
I just want to also give a quick shout out to Mike Leader, who was featured in the documentary. Mike is right here. So
yeah, Mr. Mike over there, helping us out.
Yeah, somehow this, you know, the fact that this documentary was done somehow make this trip to Korea and Taiwan seem just like and Dragon Lee again so much more emotional, because we haven't seen them in years, and they still have the passion, they still have the fight, they still want to make movies, and that was the most gratifying experience for both of us.
There were a lot of Bruceploitation movies. What's your favorite? Maybe I'll start with Michael and then Frank.
I got 2 that stand out for me. One is called The Dragon the Hero, which we talked about in there a little bit. It was a movie that Godfrey Ho, who directed it, told me, you know, it was a period film, like a weird supernatural period film that they did. But then Joseph Lai and Thomas Tang said, you've got to put Bruce Lee exploitation actor in there. You gotta get Dragon Lee and stick him in there. And Godfrey was like, it's kind of like doesn't fit this, does it? I don't care. And so anyways, it's one of these movies that's just, you have to watch it. It's just so wild. So it's that one I put up at the top of my list. And it was the first time I ever saw one of these movies in the original language at the Pagoda Palace in San Francisco, so it has a special place in my nostalgia. But then the other is Bruce Lee's Greatest Revenge, which is a remake of Fist and Fury that Bruce Lee had done that I just absolutely love, where he invents the new chaku, his weapon, by taking 2 sausages and stringing them together and hitting people on the head. So it's a great moment.
I have to be greedy, I have 2. So the first one is Dragon Lee again, because that is like the craziest Bruceploitation movie to see Bruce Lee fight James Bond, The Man with No Name, and Dracula, and like Laurel and Hardy, and Popeye. I just thought it was crazy fun. But it also was kind of a little bit, you know, whimsical at the end when, you know, Bruce Lee's character said goodbye to them before he kind of flies together. So it's like, it gives like really kind of closure to this whole, you know, this idea that Bruce is really no longer with us. My other favorite Bruceploitation movie was exactly the one that was mentioned in the film, Enter the Fat Dragon. I thought that was it was a fantastic Bruceploitation film, yet there's no any hint of, you know, parody or you know, any kind of like criticism or they're not making fun of Bruce Lee. It was actually very, like Mike said, it was a very respectable piss take, and I think that sums it up perfectly.
Enter the Fat Dragon is a great film. So moving on. So there were so many clones of Bruce. So who do you think actually acted like Bruce Lee out of all of them? And then also another question in here would be, who do you think is the best martial artist out of that? Alfred, Michael?
Well, we were just having this conversation, and I think as the best martial arts would be Bruce Lang, who is you just get to watch him on how explosive he is. I think as a martial artist, he's the best. Who plays Bruce Lee the best that's a tough one, because on the pure imitation side of it, you know, you get somebody like Bruce Lee who just every time he looks at you, he does this with his thumb, right? But I think Bruce Lee, Ho Jung Dao, the one that resisted playing Bruce Lee the most, comes across as being the most like Bruce Lee. And I think, just in this, I think, as Bruce Lee was fond of saying in his life, imitation is not what you want out of martial arts, it's freeing up to be yourself. So in a weird way, the whole imitation of Bruce Lee is like an antithesis to Bruce Lee, where Ho Jung Dao was like, can I just be myself? But I would respect, we just saw him the other week, he just kept talking about Bruce Lee. He just kept going, Bruce Lee's the best, Bruce Lee's number one, Jeet Kune Do, we gotta pass it on. So he's very passionate about Bruce Lee, but he doesn't want to be compared to Bruce Lee.
Yeah, we told him to introduce himself. We just say where you're from, where you grew up. He just said, my name is Ho Jung Dao. Bruce Lee's the best. So like, forget everything, forget about me. Bruce Lee's the best. For me, I still think Bruce Lee is the best Bruceploitation actor. As far as who's the best martial artist, because they all have martial arts training. So I really don't want to say who is the best in terms of the martial arts skill, but in terms of the acting skill, in terms of who looks like Bruce Lee the most, I would have to say Ho Jung Dao.
So another question, I think probably some of the people in the audience were thinking, do you think that there's a future movie with all the clones of Bruce Lee in an actual narrative movie, possibly like the Avengers? Like maybe Frank to kick off and then Michael stuff?
Funny that you should ask that question.
There could be a possibility that this is in the works. There's something I've always wanted to do is give these guys another opportunity to do something and do it together. And so we're let's just say we're taking steps in that expendable direction. So we'll see how it goes.
And also, they all have this sense of competitiveness within them. So whenever something like you just mentioned, is brought up, they all said, I wish that we can still do one more film, kind of like a swan song, that really let people know this is the end, this is like the best that we can do at this point in our career. So it's almost like they all still want to make movies, they still have the passion for making movies. And it sounds like if something like this comes along, they'd be more than willing to consider doing it.
That's wonderful to hear. I'm going to open up the questions to the audience. Any first takers?
There's a poster calling your names.
I know there's a signpost right in front of me right now.
Oh, here comes the poster.
Hello, thank you very much for a fantastic film.
Thank you.
How long did the Bruceploitation genre kind of last for? Because it seems like there's a lot of films being made in quite a short space of time. And what legacy do you think they've had in action films and martial arts and the kind of sort of resurgence of pictures and what we see today?
You know what? I'll answer it this way: is that first off, I don't want to get so technical that you know exactly what a Bruceploitation film is. Not you. I just meant as a person, So it's. I think there's, but like any sort of exploited sort of genre, I think they all have a finite amount of time. Like in other words, you can't go out and make, I don't think, a Bruceploitation film today. I don't think you could make black exploitation films. You can do parodies of them, you can pay homages to them, but they're sort of a product of their time. And I look at sort of this period of 1973, which was right around the time Bruce Lee passed away. There was a film that was being made called The Growling Tiger in his lifetime that was a sequel to one of his movies. So it sort of started while he was alive. And I would say it gave it a good decade before it actually sort of faded out, But, as I was saying in the beginning, I really feel that there is so much in these films. We talked about this today, actually. Like, it's as if you decided to discard, people know who Ed Wood was. Ed Wood was like a monster horror filmmaker, And if you were to discard his films because they were so bad and take it out, you'd miss a certain section of horror history in cinema. And I feel these films are the same way. There's some really good ones, there's some really terrible ones, and then there's some extremely talented people that were cutting their teeth and learning their craft in these movies. So I just think that sort of, it really does have a place in history for us, and not to I don't want to overemphasize it and try to be pedantic about it, but it's just anyway. So yeah, I'd say a good 10 years, from about 73 to the mid 80s, somewhere 11, 12 years, something like that.
Yeah, I think once Jackie Chan gained popularity with his first a period comedy like Young Master and Dragon Lord, and then once he moved to modern period comedies like the Lucky Star series, Rules on Meals, I think that really kind of signaled the end of Bruceploitation, because by then everybody was into Kung Fu comedy, whether it's period comedy or modern times comedy, and that kind of just like, that sort of sealed the fate for Bruceploitation. And this was really the idea about documentary, was to never make fun of it. I mean, this was, the idea of this documentary was really to tell you, some people like despise this genre, they hated this genre. They think this is a dishonor to Bruce Lee. But we want to show you what there's something that's worth exploring in these films. But these are competently made films. The martial art in these films are great, and the comedies are great, and the acting is actually fantastic, and the actors are all real martial artists. So we just hope that people can look into the genre one more time and kind of just acknowledge that this was still part of Kung Fu action cinema. It has its own genre. It's a subgenre within a genre, and we just want people to kind of know more about these films so they can kind of go and explore themselves. Thank you.
Well done.
Yep. Second question. Yep.
I love this film. I found it really fascinating. But also, it was very funny in times, but it was also, I found it kind of sad when you're talking through some of the ways in which Bruce Lee himself was very exploited, like the part where literally like a photo from his casket is shown on a poster, but was very shocking. I was just wondering if when you're creating the film, how you thought to balance some of those elements of this love that you have for it, and some of the funny nature of it, with obviously the very serious pain that his family went through, seeing a lot of this, and whether you had contact with them at all, and sort of what you were thinking about when you were putting this together.
Well, that's what David, more or less David's style.
Yeah, I mean, I know the Lee family a little bit. Shannon, his daughter, I know pretty well, and David even came to me and said, "Should we get her to be interviewed for this?" I'm going, I don't know, I really don't want to do this. But I think there were times where there's a couple elements that in these films go into, like the affair Bruce Lee had, supposedly, let's just say, with Betty Ting Pei, which is a big part of many of these movie plots. Every time it's a film about Bruce Lee, it's usually she jumps into the picture somewhere. And I just, I talked to David about it, and we talked a little bit about it, and even about just to follow my train of thought there, and just I decided, well, let's just not maybe push that angle of it. I mean, it's in there, so I mean, it's not like we want to avoid it, but also the whole point about him being murdered, there's this idea of, was he murdered? Did he just die of natural causes, or was it a drug thing, or whatever? And again, I said, maybe we don't want to go into that because the films go into it. Nothing wrong with talking about that, but we did. I think in those areas I just mentioned are two of the big areas we just wanted to watch, but we did want to show it, like the posters and just show that they did push it a little bit at times with the advertising and stuff.
We also want to make people think that, well, documentary can be entertaining. The general consensus among a lot of the moviegoers is like, oh, this documentary is boring, I don't want to see a documentary. Well, we want to make it entertaining, but at the same time, to really wanted to make it meaningful, make it serious. I mean, like the part where the actors, the poem is talking about them being exploited themselves. That actually was kind of sobering to hear. You think, oh, they're going to make a lot of money out of this, but the fact was they will be exploited by the producers themselves. They will make different scenes at the same time, and then they will end up in 3 different movies, yet they only got paid for making one movie. So while they're making this so-called exploitation genre, they themselves are being exploited, and that's the irony of them being the clones.
Any other questions? Yep, Mark.
Hey guys, first of all, fantastic movie. I had the best time.
Thank you.
And being aware of so many more Bruceploitation movies that I haven't seen as a kid, so that's where something involved for me. So thanks for making this project. I was quite surprised to see that you guys have a lot of movie excerpts from all these movies. And my question is, which one was the hardest to get licensed? Or in general, how difficult was it to get all these movie excerpts from a documentary?
There is an amount of commercial license you get to just take clips and use them up within a certain time frame. So you're actually surprisingly able to get away with showing all of those without a license, as long as you're doing it within the context of something educational, number one, and B, it's not over a certain length. I don't remember what it is, 20 seconds or something like that in terms of like how long you run the clip. So that wasn't actually as difficult. I thought the same thing. I thought, oh boy, what are we gonna do? But in the end, it turned out that as long as you stick with these guidelines, it wasn't all that difficult to get.
Okay.
And Mark, by the way, is actually putting a documentary together, right, on Bruce Lee's instructor, man.
It's called Ip Man Dance.
Yeah, good. That's great.
Next year maybe.
All right, we're waiting for that.
I've got a fun follow-up question for you guys. If you had a chance to make one, let's forget about what movies you can make nowadays. What Bruceploitation movie would you make?
Oh, you mean like remake that was already
No,
made?
a new one, original one.
Oh, I see.
And who would you cast? Actually?
Well, I mean, it's funny because I can't get it out of my brain that this one I've been working on. I mean, I mean, as we mentioned earlier, I have a script I've been working on for about the last year and a half, and though it's not really Bruceploitation, it is definitely going to be anybody that, like Mike Leader, for instance, knows these films really well. Who watches this film is going to see a million references in it to these films. So I will be, we get this off the ground soon. I will be paying homage that way, but to remake or to just kind of do it. Somebody had mentioned, who was it? I don't know, maybe was I with you, Frank?
No,
Did you do it?
Well,
You said it.
somebody mentioned, what if the Bruce Lee Zheng's character in Fist of Fury survived that barrage of gunfire? He didn't get killed. What if he survived? What would the story be?
There was that, but somebody else, I don't know, maybe I wasn't with you, said with the idea of these zombie Bruceploitation guys that came out of the, they're all these, I'm like going, that is so bizarre, but I think it actually might work, so, I've never thought of that. It's a good one.
And you're not aware of any Bruce Lee or Lie or whatever fights Elvis, who's like in space or something?
Yeah.
Doesn't exist, does it?
No, and that's a good thing about Elvis. I think that's an interesting point. People love and accept Elvis impersonators all the time, but when it comes to Bruce Lee impersonators, it's like there's something so sacrilegious about it.
I enjoyed it. Thank you, guys.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I thought he was going to ask a question.
Okay.
First of all, guys, huge congratulations on the project. I thought that really opened my eyes on all the Bruceploitations, all the different attempts at least, especially back in the days in Europe. So congratulations, thank you.
Thank you.
With different kinds of technology coming up, you see different CGs. So people try to recreate Bruce whenever they can. For example, you see them in the UFC, video games, etc., etc. So have you heard or have you come across anyone try to recreate that with technology like AI?
There's a commercial with Bruce Lee, and it's like a cologne commercial or something. I think it was Japanese, I think, but it's pretty great. It's like shot through windows, and it's like he's on a porch, and he's drinking, maybe it's cologne or he's drinking wine. I can't remember what it is, but it was. I remember watching it going, that's pretty damn good.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, because you brought up AI and CG. Twilight of the Warriors was a huge hit in the UK, and it's precisely because fans of this genre have been crazy or longing for seeing real fights on film. Nothing like fast editing, CG, what have you. So I have fans, like big fans of Hong Kong, and Western fans of Hong Kong, sort of crying when they saw Sammo Hung fight in the school. And I couldn't believe that in 2024 I can still see Sammo fighting on the big screen. And that's what real fans of this genre want. They don't want fast editing. They don't want quick cutting. They want to see long shots, multiple moves, one single take action. They just want the old school style, and they've been craving for the old school style for decades. And so that's why they're so excited about seeing Twilight of the Warriors. And they kept asking me, how come Hong Kong don't make more movies like this? Why are they still making? Why have they been making all these social Asian movies? We don't need to see them. We have our own social Asians in the US and UK. So just keep making these films. I guess what they want to see is like, because Kung Fu is so global, it's such a global thing. Everybody in the world likes action. So, when you're making films that are more sticking to local issues, they tend to limit their appeal, beyond Hong Kong. With an action film like Twilight of the Warriors, that can go beyond borders. So that's what they want to see: real fighting, real kung fu.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
There's one over there.
Hi, I have, I guess, two distinct questions. Firstly, so what's the plan for the film in terms of distribution? Like, where do you want to get it screened more? In streaming platforms, perhaps, or in the theaters themselves? And secondly, Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, offended or not?
I'll talk about the streaming part. The film is already available on streaming platforms overseas, like Apple, Amazon, what have you. I'm not sure if it has a streaming platform. I mean, I'm not sure if it's available in streaming in Hong Kong yet. Definitely there's no theatrical distribution for this film yet. And we're hoping that by screening this film here, it can somehow generate some kind of attention or what have you, so that there'll be more venues screening this film. As for the offensive part, I wasn't offended. I don't know whether Michael was.
Yeah,
It's Tarantino.
I also, there's two things that jumped into my mind. First off, the whole thing with Charles Manson wasn't exactly correct either, right? It was his own fantasy. So, but if I'm not mistaken, I only saw this movie once, so I may be totally wrong, but I remember I came out of it thinking that whole moment on the set with Brad Pitt and Bruce Lee fighting was his, it wasn't even played as anything but his thought of, if I go to the set today, X is going to happen and Y is going to happen and Z. So it looked to me like it was played as what was going on in his brain rather than what really happened. So maybe his thought was that cocky Asian guy that plays Kato is going to get into a fight with me. So that's kind of how I looked at it. And of course, you know, I mean, Bruce Lee, you know, was cocky in the sense of, you know, he loved to show off his skills, but he was also a very loving human being. He did it more as a place to connect with people, and you know, he was proud of himself. Even Andre Morgan was. We were talking about Bruce Lee. That's one thing about Bruce Lee that people get sort of wrong. That he was out there fighting for justice, and he's like, you know, you stop talking this way. But he was like, he got business. He was like, I'm gonna keep my mouth shut and get through this. You know what I mean? And so I think I wasn't really. It didn't throw me off, and I thought, you know, it's Tarantino coming up with some funny idea. So, but I can see why people were, and I understand why Shannon was. You know, but Shannon's also very protective of her brand, of her father. You know, in a lot of ways. So.
I just want to say some final words. You know, we were originally planning to come to Asia to shoot additional, you know, scenes with, additional footage with, you know, Bruce Lee and Dragon Lee in Korea and Taiwan, and you know, Andrew invited, and FCC invited us to come to the screening. So, you know, we were really honored to be here. It just works out perfectly timing-wise, and you know, because we were actually originally going to go back to the, you know, the U.S. yesterday, and so this all works out, and we were very happy to be here. We're so glad that you enjoy our film, and you know, we couldn't be happier to be here with you guys. Thank you very much.
On that note, I actually have, Vivian, can you just get the
This bag? This bag?
the special awards to present to you guys?
Oh my god. Oh no, the other one. The other, this one.
What's going on here?
So this
Normally doesn't happen very often, but it's
So you guys
actually won the this is awarded by me actually as a film critic.
Yeah.
So this is the 19th Neo Hong Kong Film Awards 2023 Best Documentary. Enter the Clones of Bruce. Congratulations.
That's exciting.
By the way, the Chinese title, 李小龍複製新宇宙, we were trying so hard to come up with a Chinese title for this documentary. We were like frying our brains out, trying to think, well, what should we name this in Chinese? And it just so happened that when this film was screened at Kaohsiung Film Festival last year, they came up with this Chinese title, and we thought, okay, you know, Bruce Lee cloning in a new universe. I thought that was perfect, so we decided to kind of, you know, adopted that name for the Chinese title.
So also on that note, just token appreciation from the FCC. Special.
Oh, well,
thank you very much.
Thank you.
And on that note, we have finished the screening, so you can have your last drinks, and then.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, and have a good night. And also, as I mentioned before, like there's actually a number of posters. We have around 20 posters. So anyone who is interested, Frank and so Mike will be happy to sign the posters as well.
Question askers get the first dibs.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
That was great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.